Patrick Byrne, he's CEO of Overstock.com and writes the blog Deep Capture. Patrick, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Great to be on again. Thank you, sir.
All right, Patrick. I know whether the SEC acts or not is an issue near and dear to your heart. They did act against Goldman Sachs recently. What did you think of that action?
Well, I think it's a nice start. And I applaud them. I think the particular thing is that they've jumped on Goldman about is in a bit of a gray area. It's the kind of thing that probably 20 years ago people would have just automatically considered over the line between investing and being an honest broker and being scheming. You know, the expression on Wall Street is rip someone's face off. They usually use that expression talking about their own clients. To rip someone's face off, that's how you talk about your own client. What this lawsuit has shown is they were ripping off the face of some clients, but feeding it to their big client, and that's kind of par for the course. But again, this is actually surprisingly a gray area compared to lots of the stuff I believe Goldman's involved in.
Well, let's talk about that. I think the larger issue here is what Goldman did with AIG. What I'm not quite sure on is, and maybe they're going to do it later, but why that's not being investigated, because that was $13 billion where they shorted the toxic assets, some of which they had put together, is my understanding, and then they got bailed out by the American taxpayer on that.
Right.
Do you think that makes sense for an investigation, or am I missing something?
No. All that makes sense. I think that Goldman's a criminal enterprise. I've said that publicly for many years. I think the whole thing's a criminal enterprise. So yeah, they should absolutely be going after. They should be going after Goldman for a lot of things. Sometimes I think the way, having watched Wall Street for 25 years, seeing the way that the authorities sometimes work is they have one case that's a can opener, and they're using it to pry open the can, but maybe they have in mind a whole bunch of other things. Maybe they have a whole bunch of other things, lined up. Yeah, the Attorney General said, Attorney General Holder said about 2 months ago, basically something like, we have 5,000 indictments prepared across the financial system. I wouldn't be surprised if I sure hope a lot of those have a Goldman mailing address. But this may just be the beginning of a lot of troubles for Goldman.
Patrick, you're a CEO of a company. Why are you... if natural question is, why are you going after all the other guys? Right? Aren't you?
Well, to me, that's such a strange question. Maybe there was a day when it wouldn't have seemed unusual. Everybody hears, CEO, I wasn't always a CEO. The CEO thing is just my day gig. I was a teacher. I've taught at the university level. I write Deep Capture. That's kind of who I am. The CEO thing and being an entrepreneur and starting stuff is just kind of my day gig. So I don't see it as a conflict, but I know that it's something that everybody looks at and say, well, what's his angle? Well,
right. Well, other people, of course, are asking about what's your angle with the SEC, and what happened with you and the SEC?
Oh, well, the SEC, about 5-6 years ago, I came out and started saying a lot of ugly stuff about Wall Street and about the relationship between Wall Street and the SEC. I was warned very specifically by the CEO of another company, said if you keep doing this, these people are incredibly vindictive. They're going to come after you. They did to me. He said we had to create a Department of Investigations, just a team of lawyers who just answer SEC investigations all day long, and when they close one, they just open another, and I've been doing it for years. I thought, come on, well, I've been under federal investigation now of one form or another for 5 years. The FTC investigates, they close, the SEC. I think that this is about. The SEC has gotten us to do what are called corporate restatements. That's when a corporation has to come out and say, gee, the numbers we published before were incorrect. And, everyone associates that with Enron. What doesn't generally get covered is, for example, the first one we did, typically companies, when they cheat, they either exaggerate their revenue or they hide their expenses. 2 of our 3, our first restatement was they said, you've recognized $4 million of expense too slowly. You should have too quickly. You should have recognized it. In other words, we were, in a sense, too conservative by $4 million. Just recently, we had another restatement. It's, I think, about $800,000 net profit got moved out of 2009 into 2008. It's over a number anyway. It represents about 0.02% of revenue over the period that the net was that. And I'm really glad the SEC nailed us on that 0.02%. And incidentally, they moved it in the direction of we should have shown it earlier. So it's kind of like reading some Kafkaesque novel, because no matter what we do, I know they're just going to keep coming after me forever and ever until I'm not in the business world anymore. But I don't, so what?
All right, Patrick, I don't know, of course, the details of the case at all. I don't take sides on it. I don't know what the facts are, et cetera. But is it your contention that they're coming after you because you're saying that they're not doing a good job of regulating the rest of Wall Street?
Well, I certainly have heard that the word, certainly the SEC and I have a very acrimonious relationship. It's people who are involved on the legal side just say it's totally bizarre having to work on these but anyway,
all right.
I'm not going to beef. I don't have that kind of a beef with them. I'd rather talk about. In general, this is to me a beef between me and Wall Street, and I just wish the SEC would stop giving hall passes to the people we're trying to expose.
Again, I have no idea what the facts of your case are, but it's interesting that the SEC, when they go to regulate, usually don't take on the bigger players. So, and again, I'm not saying that that's they're going after you for whatever reason. I have no idea, right? But they go after Bernie Madoff and get that as a big scalp. But first of all, they didn't go after Bernie Madoff when he was in power. They only went after him after he was out of power. In fact, they didn't really go after him. He handed himself in. And to me, the bigger problem is institutional forces. Do you think that generally, not just SEC, but federal regulators are slower to go after these big Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, et cetera, all those guys, because they think maybe one day they'll get a job with them?
Oh, no question at all. That's the nature of regulatory capture. In fact, there was a whistleblower from within the SEC named Gary Aguirre. You can look up. He came out in 2005 and said, I was working on what I was told was the most important insider trading case in 30 years, did 100 subpoenas, no problem. The trail led to two very powerful people on Wall Street. I was told by the head of Morgan Stanley and the head of Art Sandberg, the head of a hedge fund, I was told by my boss, this is this SEC senior investigator talking, I was told by my boss these guys had too much juice, had to lay off them, and it turned out that his boss was simultaneously negotiating for $1 million a year job with the law firm representing the guys he was going after. So absolutely, there's this, they call it capture. When a regulator gets captured, too many of the brass, these brass leave and take $1 million a year jobs at the law firms. And they defend the people they were just going after. So, yeah, there's absolutely deep regulatory capture with the SEC.
We're talking to Patrick Byrne. He writes the blog deepcapture.com, and he's the CEO of Overstock.com. Patrick, is there any law against that, or can someone run the SEC or be an important regulator in the SEC or any of these other regulatory agencies and then come out the next day and get a $2 million job, $1 million job from Goldman Sachs or from a law firm that represents them?
No law at all, although if you've been a regulator going after company X, you aren't supposed to then leave and defend company X. I think there's sort of a 2-year waiting period or something, but you can go to the law firm of company X and get $1 million a year job defending their other clients, and there's all kinds of ways you can do daisy chain favors. And in other words, so you never show up on any piece of paper having to do with whatever company X is, but you understand what I mean about daisy chain favors. It never shows up on a piece of paper, but
right.
You've just done a big favor.
Yeah, no, I get that completely. So, we've talked about this before, and we kind of disagree sometimes on how to fix it. But what's your thought here? How do you fix that system, that particular problem?
That particular problem, you ought to do what the military does. There's a revolving door policy where you basically have to, you can't leave the military from a certain high enough position and go and join defense contractors without a certain cooling off period. I forget how many years it is. So that would be a first step. But, that's just it doesn't just stop with the SEC. The Senate Banking Committee, which is supposed to oversee the SEC, has, all these guys, I feel, are so are so captured. If John Maynard Keynes said that an ocean of speculation can support a bubble of, an ocean of productivity can support a bubble of speculation, but an ocean of speculation can't support a bubble of productivity. What we have now is the speculators own too many of the politicians and regulators in D.C., and they're instructing them protect the ocean of speculation. And the whole political fight you're seeing is between the speculators who want to keep that ocean protected and those who realize the speculative activity doesn't really add any value to society.
All right. Well, then let me ask 2 questions about that real quick. As we get to the larger reform issue, that ocean of speculation, do you think the current bills working their way through the House and the Senate, what Obama's proposing, is it nearly strong enough to tackle that ocean of speculation, or no?
No, it's directionally correct, but it's not at all. It's frosting on the cake. 2 things they should do is, and I'm a small government guy, so this is surprising for me to say, the SEC budget is about $1 billion a year. It's about what we spend on the Denver Police Department, is what we spend policing the U.S. capital markets. The budget should probably be about 10 times bigger than it is. And I say that as a small government guy. On the other hand, I think that civil suits don't scare Wall Street at all. I think that they're a parking ticket. And the only thing, I think that the SEC or that function should be part of the Justice Department, because the only thing that scares these guys is an orange jumpsuit, and the folks who are in the business of issuing orange jumpsuits are the Justice Department. So the SEC, do you have a minute for me to give you a quick history that you may find interesting?
Sure, go ahead.
Real quick. 1929, after the crash, there was a Senate investigation, much like we're doing today. It was really supposed to be a cover-up, or a whitewash, I should say. And they hired the wrong guy. They hired this tough Italian Sicilian immigrant named Ferdinand Pecora, and he ran a very tough 18-month hearing in the Senate. And what came out of that was the 1934 Security Act, the beginning of modern regulation. What Roosevelt wanted to do was create a part of the Justice Department to police Wall Street. Wall Street fought it tooth and nail. Will Rogers said those Wall Street boys sure are fighting awful hard against putting a cop on their corner. And Roosevelt later said that the hardest fought reform he had in American society was this fight, trying to police Wall Street. They compromised. The compromise is called the Securities and Exchange Commission. It's a civilian commission that has no police power, can't throw anyone in jail or anything. It's just supposed to look at what's going on and file lawsuits on behalf of the public. Well, the very existence of the SEC is a compromise. What it should be is a group with actual crime-fighting power within the Justice Department, and that's what Obama should be going for. It's probably too big he's not even fighting for it. What he's doing is actually, I think, kind of tepid, but it's directionally correct, as they would say.
I agree with that, that it's directionally correct, but not nearly enough. So just, again, real quick, on the derivatives, do you think there's the complex derivatives, the naked credit default swaps, gambling, et cetera? I mean, it is legal, so what action would you take, even if the SEC did have the power to take criminal action?
Well, it is legal. They should change that. They at least should be over the counter, and the truth. I mean, they should be standardized, have an exchange they trade on. As I'm sure you know, Buffett has called these derivatives weapons of mass destruction, financial weapons of mass destruction. There's a real question whether they add any value. In fact, Paul Volcker, probably your and my favorite German, said a couple months ago, the only financial innovation in the last 30 years that actually has added value to society is the ATM. These things they don't create any value.
Except for the executives running those companies.
Right.
And then today, Soros came out and said, yeah, some of them should be banned. There's no, same thing you're saying. There's no value in them. They don't create anything. They don't produce anything. And all they're doing, they're just speculation and gambling that endangers our whole economy. So on that line, finally, are you thinking that all these people who are worried, including myself, that we're going to run into an iceberg here with this ocean of speculation, to use more ocean analogies today? Do you think they're right? You think that we're not going to fix it and we're going to hit that iceberg?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer is I feel morally conflicted about saying that, because finance is by its nature a confidence game, and I think what D.C. is trying to do is take steps to build, in a literal sense, build up confidence. And by coming out and pointing this out, we're eroding confidence. But yeah, I think people should be very financially conservative and expect the other shoe to fall within a few years at the outside.
Yeah, I'm thinking 1 to 3 years. I mean, look, you can be confident all you like. In fact, you could have irrational exuberance, and that bubble bursts at some point. So, there is something to the substance of whether you're right or wrong and whether this thing can structurally work or not. All right, unfortunately, we seem to agree that it's, in the long run, not going to work. Well, let's hope they get tougher.
I hope so, sir, and thank you for having me on again.
All right, we appreciate you coming on, Patrick. And his blog, of course, is deepcapture.com, and the company is overstock.com. Thank you, Patrick.